Hello, everyone. Cecil Martin here.
Hey, this is Hunter Henry.
What's up, man? This is Max Crosby, part of Raider Nation.
Hey, this is Ross Tucker, former NFL offensive lineman.
Hey, it's Tyler Lockett of the Seattle Seahawks.
Hey, this is Jerry Judy, wide receiver for the Denver Broncos, and you're listening to the 14-Yard NFL Podcast.
Week 5, eh? That was fun, wasn't it? I'm Sam Moores, and this is the Full 10 Yards NFL podcast. And joining me to pick through the best bits of Sunday's action is returning guest Olly D'Arcy. There weren't too many close games, but most of them were really entertaining, weren't they, Ollie?
Yeah, there were some blowouts. There was a couple of close games. One that I know you were at that you very much enjoyed. But got week 5 already. It's we're getting on with it, aren't we?
Yeah, mate, to begin, there's only one place to start really, isn't there? And that's right here in the UK, where the Jags will leave London at 2-0, 2-0 in London anyway, after beating the Bills 25-20 to go 3-2 in the season. What a game this was, man. Two of the best QBs in the league. They put on a show for everyone, but for me, I think what I was most impressed with was both defenses. They were the real stars most of this game. Jacksonville got out to an 11-0 lead in the first quarter after roughing the passer penalty shortened the 2-point distance in half. I loved it from Doug Peterson going for 2 right at the start of the game. It was bold, but again, like I said, I loved it. And it was a perfect statement of intent for, if the Jags are going to win this game, if they're going to beat the Bills, you have to go very aggressive from the start, and they did that. The Jags defense that I've been hyping up on the podcast all year, I've been saying I like what they're doing. They've got a lot of young players that they've invested in. That some of them aren't even making plays. Lots of Devin Lloyd's missed these last 2 games. Trevon Walker's still not there, but you've got Josh Allen, man, who's such a good pass rusher, and Tyson Campbell and Darius Williams, these 2 cornerbacks again, which are one of the best duos in the league in my opinion. So I've been hyping them up all year. They held Buffalo just one passing first down before the 2-minute warning, when they did eventually go down and score. An awesome throw from Josh Allen to Stephon Diggs, who hit the Sioux right in front of me and my dad, which is really funny in celebration. The Jags then got to the red zone before the half. A really nice drive from Lawrence again, 2-minute drive from both these QBs were excellent all game. When the pressure really hit them, but they had Lawrence turn the ball over, fumble on 3rd and 3. AJ Epineza hit him, strip sack, and Buffalo knelt it out to take it to 11-7 at half time. Like I said, both defenses continued their impressive play throughout the third quarter, before both QBs gave us a grandstand finish. Darius Williams, I mentioned his name just a minute ago, he got his second interception of the London trip after the pick six against Desmond Ridder last week at the beginning of the fourth, on a jump ball that Josh Allen actually underthrew to Stephon Diggs. It was sort of his back foot, which is why. But yeah, and from then on, the game was just flat out bonkers towards the end of it. Travis Etienne capped off an impressive drive to put the Jags 18-7 up with 7 minutes to go, before Josh Allen connected with Gabe Davis in the end zone with 4 minutes to go. So obviously 2 touchdowns in 3 minutes. A roughing the pass call on the other Josh Allen, who got the sack, helped them on the way, but the 2-point conversion for the Bills was no good, making it a 5-point game. The Jags 18-13 up. Within a minute, the Jags were back up by 2 scores again, with Travis Etienne heading in on a 35-yard touchdown run. He was so good yesterday. But Josh Allen was back in himself within 4 plays, bulldozing his way into the end zone with the help of his offensive lineman. A late hook and lateral play was no good for Buffalo, with Trevon Walker recovering the ball to seal the Jags' victory. And I mean, look, Ollie, this could have been this was a real. I think it's a real statement win for the Jags, isn't it? Because it always feels like they sort of hit form when they come to London. And obviously, for them, especially the last 2 weeks, they've been together for a whole 2 weeks. Bonding as a team, and obviously you could see that they were the better team yesterday, weren't they?
Yeah, I mean, as you said, they've been in the UK now for 2 weeks, so they've travelled together, trained together, bonded together, all in London. And if anything, it is going to help. It's going to help them a lot. People don't the teams have complained about travelling to London just for a week because it does mess them around a bit. But to have the Jags there for 2 weeks has really helped them, I'm sure. And you could tell yesterday against a Bills team who are red hot, coming off beating the Dolphins, absolutely dismantling who many people thought were the number 1 team before week 4. And as you said, their defense was absolutely brilliant, which is what people were expecting with those names. But their offense with Doug Peterson now is just looking really, really nice. Trevor Lawrence has made that leap, which is what people wanted to see. He's now done that. Travis Etienne, unbelievable game. I mean, I think it was sealed by the rushing yards. 196 rushing yards for the Jags to only 29 of the Bills, which won't get it done. If both defenses are playing brilliantly, which is what the Bills and the Jags can do, it will come down to a bit of offense. And the Jags pulled it out of the bag this time around. Trevor Lawrence and Etienne looking good. They were pretty clean with penalties. They had far less penalty yards, efficient on third downs. And if the Jags can keep rolling like this, there could be some joy in Jacksonville, definitely.
Well, yeah, they've got one of the easiest schedules throughout the rest of the season, which is good for the Jags too. And I've been saying that Trevor Lawrence has all the numbers this year to be in the MVP conversation. It's just like when you look in the box score, when you look at his like normal, ESPN stats, it'd be 4 touchdowns, a couple of interceptions, which it doesn't look great, but when you look at the actual in-depth analytics, you can see that Lawrence has been a top QB this year. He's up there with Tua and Matthew Stafford with a big time throw this year. As I've said, I think he might even be at the top now today. I've not looked at the PFF numbers yet, but I believe he probably is at the top after week 5. Again, he's hardly turned the ball. He's not had many turnovers if he plays either. He's been a top QB again, and I think after the London game last year, after the loss to the Broncos, the Jags went on their massive win streak. They won 7 in a row to get to the playoffs, and obviously they're bonded as a team. And if the Jags can do something similar again, then they're going to be really, really difficult to beat. And also hitting form as well. They'll be hitting form at the right time again, which is awesome. And we'll see how far they go in the playoffs. But I think obviously both of these teams were playoff teams. The only thing you can really say is Buffalo. They've unfortunately lost Matt Milano. It sounds like he's done for the year. Knee and leg injury, it just doesn't sound great at all. And obviously he's the leader of their defense. They've already lost Tremaine Edmonds in the offseason. They're now going to be without their two starting linebackers. So we'll see how valuable they were to the defense as we get on in the year. But obviously that could be a big mess, couldn't it?
Well, I mean, if they lose someone like Matt Milano in that middle linebacker core, they're not in trouble, but they lost Tre'Davious White as well. I mean, that's 2 absolute studs of your defense just gone. And that is just defense wins championships. And the Bills have just they've been at that hurdle and they've just never got over it. And if their defense, I mean, it looked good yesterday, but if you're losing 2 absolute stars for the rest of the year, they could do some Aaron Rodgers Achilles magic and maybe come back for the playoffs. But you just don't know. It's a tough one for the Bills and their defense. It really hits their playoff chances hard. But Josh Allen's an absolute fighter. He won't go down. His offense won't go down without a fight. He'll try and put up some points. I mean, as you said, their defense yesterday was battling hard against the Jags. So they've got plenty of opportunities. It's just whether they will get over that hump in the playoffs without those 2 stars in White and Milano.
Well, that's the thing as well. I think now they've got James Cook, they can have to control games. They couldn't control the game yesterday, but obviously, very different situations. I can sort of forgive them for that because the Jags have been, a climate Buffalo had done. So you can sort of have an excuse there to say. But I think just final words on this one. I think the Bills, their defense is good without obviously Milano, without Tre'Davious White. They got Von Miller back yesterday, which obviously he didn't make that big of an impact, but it's his first game back after a year out. I think he'll hopefully Miller can make some plays, and it's that pass rush that will continue to frustrate teams because they can get they got to Lawrence yesterday a lot. They got to Tua the week before a lot without Von Miller as well. And now that Ebenezer, Boogie Basham, Greg Rousseau, who's injured at the moment, but again when he comes back as well, that pass rush for Buffalo is so lethal. And again, that will be what will continue to frustrate offenses because I think this is also Sean McDermott's calling plays for Buffalo's defense now because Leslie Frazier's gone into broadcasting. We've seen a great we've actually I think McDermott called a great game yesterday even after losing Milano. Even I think the DBs did quite well against the likes of Zay Jones, Christian Kirk, and Calvin Ridley. Who they had the Jags gave Calvin Ridley the ball, but it was, creatively it would be, comeback routes. So it would be, they gave him. I think he had 2 rushes on jet sweeps. Like, cause they take Calvin Ridley and Evan Ingram too, who did nothing all game pretty well. So that's something you can sort of take away from that. But again, both teams will be playoff teams, and they might even meet again, might they?
I mean, they both put on an absolute show yesterday, as you said. And if you could put in a word saying that this could be your AFC Championship game. You really could, if someone could upset the Chiefs, because if their defenses can shut down teams like that, they can go far.
Yeah, it was a 35th London game. One of the best London games as well. You could probably put it up there with the 2 great Kirk Cousins ones, one last year against the Saints and the one with Washington back in, I think, 2013 or 14. You could put those 2 back in there as well. But yeah, awesome day yesterday. Moving on to Arizona, who unfortunately came away with a loss against Cincinnati. The Bengals looked back. A healthier Joe Burrow and Jamar Chase are back on song to give the Bengals a much improved offensive performance to beat the Cardinals. Like last week, the on-script stuff at the start of the game was really good. We saw that in Tennessee the week before. But the opening drive this time saw Chase score his first touchdown of the season, and Burrow goes 7 for 7 for 55 yards. The Cardinals pass rush did get to Joe Burrow. The offense did struggle in the first half. It was back and forth for most of it, but in the second half they found the groove that we've been waiting for them to hit all season. How important was that, Olly?
I mean, there were all sorts of reports coming out saying Burrow's not 100% healthy. Don't look into games too much, but he just did what he does best and just took over a game, which is what he's done for the last 2-3 years. He's just taken over games, and he just needed to do that. He needed to pick up this Bengals team, which looked absolutely shot of confidence, and pick them up, drag them through, and with the help of Jamar Chase, which is always a nice bit of help, they pulled through and got a win. They were both our picks for winning the AFC, I think. And I mean, look, they haven't had the greatest start, but if they keep rolling like that, they're not going to do too badly. I mean, they absolutely dominated on the passing front, and Jamar Chase was just back to his best as well, wasn't he? Where he got 192 yards, 3 touchdowns, 15 receptions, which I believe is a Bengals record.
It was a Bengals record, yeah.
So that's what they need to do. They need to. Zach Taylor needs to stop trying to be too cute and trying to do all sorts. They need to just put the ball in Burrow's hands sometimes and just let him throw it. And 46 passing attempts, 36 completed, and that will win you games for the Bengals. And that's what got them to the Super Bowl a couple of years ago. That's what got them to the AFC Championship game. They just need to keep doing that. And as you said, they may be back now if they do keep going with that blueprint.
Yeah, the offensive line was much better yesterday, especially in the second half as well. The Cardinals defense brought them to the ground 3 times in the first half, but as the skill players got and Chase, and obviously they have T. Higgins in this game as well, who's got crap ribs. The offensive line got better in the second half too, which is hopefully a massive sign, because if you can protect Burrow, if you give him time to throw like he had yesterday for a lot of it, then you see he's been beat up all season. He's been injured himself. He's not been fluid. Now he's a little bit healthier, as we've seen in the news this week. Now, we finally saw a healthier Joe Burrow. We saw him have time in the pocket, and he stepped up, and that 63-yard bomb to Jamar Chase was just in stride, was just lovely, and it's one of the best throws of the week. That and that gave the Bengals a lead right at the half. Momentum sort of briefly swung the Cardinals' way. Emilio DeMarcado, the running back, went in for a TD. He was in for James Conner, who went out with a knee injury. It doesn't sound good on Conner's front either. He's had knee history, so that doesn't sound great at all. But DeMarcado looked great yesterday. I actually thought, again, another sort of no-name player in the Cardinals who can make an impact, as they have done all season. Burrow then actually had a pass intercepted after Trenton Irwin slipped over, which sort of, okay, how many the Cardinals might come back into it, but Jermaine Pratt stopped DeMarcado on 4th down. touchdown, and the Bengals will quickly back up within 2 scores within a few seconds as Chase went in for his third TD on his 14th catch. As you mentioned, he had 15 catches. Pratt was back in the news as well later in the game as he intercepted Josh Dobbs towards the end of the game, and the Bengals won 34-20. Yesterday, Josh Dobbs threw his first 2 interceptions of the season, which sort of shows how good he's played this year under the radar as well. And ultimately, I think on-form Bengals team were just too good for the Cardinals. I think that's what we saw yesterday, because they weren't bad. They weren't bad. The Bengals defense stepped up as well, but I think, again, the Cardinals are probably better than a 1-4 record, and the Bengals certainly are better than their 2-3 record, right?
Well, I was going to mention about the Cardinals. I think a 1-4 record is really, really tough on them. Keep in mind their win was against the Cowboys, red-hot Cowboys that had come out of the gates absolutely flying. They checked the Cowboys. Their defense has been superb. They've been able to run the ball. As you said, DeMarcado looked really, really nice in replacing James Conner. Josh Dobbs has been a very nice little game manager while Kyler Murray's been out. And they, as you said, it was his first 2 interceptions, so he's been really clean as well. He's not been throwing it into double or triple coverage. They've been moving the ball nicely, and it's not been pretty football from the Cardinals. It wasn't going to be. Everyone thought they could go 0-16, and they've fought. They have got that chip on their shoulder, and they just keep fighting. They're better than 1-4, and I'd like to see them. I would love to see them get a few more wins, and I think they will, the way they're playing football. But as you said, they came up against a Bengals team that had something to prove, that were fighting for their lives, it seemed like. And Burrow did his thing. Jamar Chase did his thing. The offensive line finally did their thing, protected Burrow. And their defense stepped up when they needed to. And as you say, they probably are back. You'd like to think they're back. I'd like to think they're back for my predictions. But it looked nice for them, and Bengals fans will be happy with what they see. They just need to put the ball in Burrow's hands a bit more.
Yeah, we'll get into it later, but the race for the AFC North is looking really interesting now with the rest of the games. On to our final game we're going to break down before going through all the other games and picking the best bits out of them. It is the Cowboys, who got absolutely walloped in San Francisco last night. The Niners coming away 42-10 winners. Their superstars George Kittle and Fred Warner put on a show on Sunday Night Football, making it a sorry night of football for America's team. Kittle with 3 touchdowns, a hat-trick, as Mike Baker called it. Fred Warner with an interception, a forced fumble, a sack, and a tackle for loss, all in key moments too. Brock Purdy too was terrific, attacking the middle of the field with 4 touchdowns. Only 24 pass attempts too, 17-24 for 252 yards. He was epic. Look, we'll start with San Francisco because they just look so unstoppable, don't they? It's going to take a mega performance to beat them this season. It really is, and they could honestly. Philly maybe could beat them. It's going to be difficult to beat this team for sure, isn't it? And we're gonna have what I think it's pretty safe to pick them for the 1 seed, isn't it? Right now.
I mean, if you look at the stats from yesterday, everyone thought you must stop Christian McCaffrey, and fair play, Cowboys. The only thing they did really was stop Christian McCaffrey. He only averaged 2.7, did get a touchdown, only averaged 2.7 yards a pop, 51 yards, and the 49ers still hung 42 points on one of the best defenses in this league. It's just obscene what they are doing right now. They've got Kittle, who has been, by his standards, he's been good, but he's not had the big games that he would have liked. Finally turned up with his first ever 3 TD game for the 49ers, averaging 22 yards a reception. And then you got Brandon Ayuk and Deebo Samuel as well, who are just absolute weapons in the passing game. And as you said, Brock Purdy is showing some fantastic ability. He is just coming into his own. They put a lot of faith into him, trading away Trey Lance after trading for him for a ridiculous package. But he's showing that they've put their faith in the right person. And 252 yards with only 7 incompletions, 4 touchdowns. It's it's scary. It is really scary for the rest of the NFL, the way these 49ers are just chugging along.
Yeah, and I mean, I'm not a big fan of Purdy. I think he's great. I think if you, for what the Niners have, but I would say if you put Cousins in the offense, it'll be unstoppable. That's what I still think that they'll look to upgrade, to Cousins in the offseason. I think if you put maybe Dak Prescott in this offense, it'd be even better as well. And I will get on to Dallas's offense now because it hasn't impressed me at all. If I'm being honest, I've seen one good week from Dallas in 5 on offense. You can run the ball. I like Tony Pollard. I like Dowdle. I like all the players you're running the ball with. But you're meant to have a good QB and you're meant to have a great trio in obviously CeeDee Lamb, Brandon Cooks, and Michael Gallup. Right, I've not seen Cooks or Gallup do anything this season, if I'm being honest. But like Cook, we said on the podcast of Liam on Friday, it looks like Cooks 1,000 yards, season streak, however long it is, like 9 years, whatever, is going to probably end. Because he's been a non-player in this offense. Why is no one stepping up? The roster's so talented, but without their defensive TDs, the Cowboys could genuinely, have a few more losses on their record because they've offense-wise, they're tied for 21st. The Packers, the Bucks, the Falcons, and the Raiders at 4.9 yards per play. Not impressive at all. They're tied for the third worst number in passing yards per completion. Again, shows that Dak's not really doing anything at all, really. Just like, do you see the same thing? Like, they've got all the players, they've got a decent offensive line. They had their offensive line, fully back in this game too. But even without them, they've still been a mid offensive line to sort of above average offensive line without Zach Martin and Tyron Smith. And it just Dallas' defense is so good, but Mike McCarthy, his offense is just so dull. It's so boring, and I feel like you're just wasting an opportunity for a Super Bowl here because I think I look at the other side of the ball. I see if Dak Prescott was in that Niners offense, and I think Dallas could genuinely probably win the Super Bowl, but right now I don't see it at all.
It's. You mentioned Mike McCarthy, and it could be a coaching thing, but you've got to look at their offense and you've got to question it. Where is this next man up mentality? Like you said, their rushing game is quite good. They got bottled up against the 49ers, but their defense is just out of this world. Fair play for bottling up Pollard and Dowdle, but their receiving core is so talented, and you've got CeeDee Lamb who will find his way open because he is that guy. But then you've got Jake Ferguson as well at tight end, who can do it at tight end. He can be a fantastic ball carrier. He can be brilliant with Yak. Michael Gallup and Brandon Cooks. It's just Cooks had 1 reception, Gallup had 2. I mean, on prime time, you're meant to show up. You're meant to turn up. They hid behind the lights. They hid away from the lights. They didn't turn up. And the main person that should have been there had the light shine on him and at least take this game to the 49ers and show why they have this record is Dak Prescott. And he did not do that at all. 153 yards, 3 interceptions. I mean, he's done this for years and years with different coaches. He looks fantastic one game and he'll throw for 400 yards. And then he will lay an absolute egg. He will lay an egg, 153 yards, 3 interceptions, only 1 TD. You can blame coaching again. You go from Jason Garrett to Mike McCarthy maybe and say, oh, this isn't. But when can you look at the offense and say there is a problem here with our quarterback, with our wide receiver 2 and 3? You've got to do that sometimes. Their defense is fine. The first game they've probably let up against a fantastic 49ers offense. You've got to have a look at this offense, which, as you say, has not been special at all. You've been impressed with them one week. I'd probably say the same. It's just you've got to have a look.
Last week against the Patriots.
Yeah, that's it. And you've just got to have a look at what is going wrong and can you upgrade your position? Can you find someone better than Dak Prescott? I mean, it's not like he's been given this massive contract and he's never played up to it. And yesterday just proved that.
Yeah, and I think at some point you got to look at sort of what's wrong. Well, because it's just been the same Cowboys since like 2017. They had the good first year after Remy got injured. That came in, and since then they've just been the same old team. They've had an absolutely loaded roster in this window since then as well, especially on the defensive side of the ball now, and it just looked like same old Cowboys again and again and again. I just feel like, honestly, again, put Kirk Cousins in this Cowboys offense. I think he again could probably reach a Super Bowl in it. I'd have, I think Cousins is better than Dak, and I think actually him being under the spotlight in Dallas might actually be good for Kirk as well. To be honest with you, that's the kind of thing that he could prove a lot of doubters wrong there. We'll see, but for now, the Niners are so good, and the Cowboys talented, but they've got 2 losses now, and they're starting to concern me a little bit. Right, on to the rest of the state now. We'll start over the Chiefs, who were 27-20 winners over Kirk Cousins' Minnesota Vikings. This one was really tight throughout. Actually, I thought the Vikings played well again, but another fumble to start the game sort of just showed. And from then they were a step behind from the Chiefs. They're losing so many games because it's not Kirk that's turning the ball over. It's running backs, it's tight ends after the catch. That's the problem. They've got about 9 fumbles in the first 5 weeks. That's not normal at all. Like you have to wonder what's going on there. Like I said, they were quite creative on defense. They dealt with Mahomes quite well. Brian Flores is creative game plan as ever, getting blitzing pretty much anyone, but also making sure you have tight coverage as well. I thought the Chiefs good, but I'm still not sold on them completely. I still think they're a top 10 offense, but I don't think they're like a number 1 offense they were last year. Even which surprised us all. I think they sort of regressed to mean a little bit, I'd say. But the Vikings, they're just like they could have won this game. They've 1-4 now. Again, they've lost 4 one-score games. They could have won all 4 of those games, and their worst performance was their win against Carolina. Again, the Chiefs in the Eagles game, I thought they were really good. Who else did they play? The Bucs game, I thought they were good. The Chargers game, I thought they were good, but they cost themselves wins here, and you have to wonder when it's time to just blow it up, because what happens? At this point, you could get a quarterback, let Cousins walk, and if you get Caleb Williams into that Vikings offense now. Bear in mind, you also got a load of cap room. You sort of did a mini rebuild in the off season. You're then thinking, "Hello, this might a lot of teams over the next couple of weeks we're going to see what they are, what their future will be, because this is a team here that are start at 1-4, and I'm not impressed by them whatsoever. Also, I am impressed by them, but I'm not impressed by the way they'll play. The way they're finishing out games, and not really they're 1-4. Again, Chiefs were all right. But the Vikings, again, cost themselves a game where they could have upset the Chiefs, didn't they?
I mean, I wouldn't be complaining if they blew it up already at 1-4 as a supporter of the NFC North. But I mean, I wouldn't say blow it up, because last year everything turned to gold for them. They won all these 1-possession games. Now it's just vice versa. And I don't know what you can put it down. I can't really. The only thing that I can lay a finger on is poor coaching and poor management, because that's how you lose. Yeah, that's how you lose poor games. And maybe they blow it up in the off season in that regard. They may let Kirk Cousins walk. They may think it's time for a little bit of change. But I mean, Kirk wasn't bad yesterday, but a little bit of change may be needed. They had a little bit of change this off-season, but not too much, and everyone was umming and ahhing about them, and they've just come out, and it's just come out wrong for them. But they've just missed it because of these 1-possession games, but they've missed it in the biggest regard, and that is coaching, and that's maybe where the change needs to come from.
Yeah, I think again, Brian Flores in that building, I think he probably deserves another chance as a head coach. Again, he didn't treat Tua very well, which is what lost him his job in the first place. But I think, again, from what he did offer in that time, he might be someone that they could look to if they do decide to move on from Kevin O'Connell. And the only other thing I can take out of this game is that the injuries. Travis Kelce did look to hurt his ankle on the turf, which we're thinking, Travis Kelce, if he hurts his ankle on the turf, Taylor Swift's not there, but all the Swifties will will basically force the NFL into changing to all field league. Then about 3 plays later, he went back into the game and it was all fine. And then Justin Jefferson unfortunately did get injured. He got taken out of the game with a hamstring injury. Luckily, it's just a hamstring, so again, it's not a long-term thing by any means. But whether he plays next week or not, is touch and go right now. They needed him in the final drive to tie the game, and they didn't have him. And Cousins took the sack as the game expired. But the Chiefs are great. They're 4-1. They're top of the AFC of the Dolphins now, and when they're not impressing, they still find a way to win each time, and that's the most impressive thing about Andy Reid as a coach. Okay, we're moving on to a game that was absolutely mental. It's just pure AFC North, this one. The Ravens losing to Pittsburgh. And I just look at them like, how did they lose this one, right? Honestly, they had about 6 things that just went... they could have absolutely blown out the Steelers here, and they lost 10-17, right? Rashad Bateman dropped a touchdown in the second quarter. Justice Hill fumbled when running, that then led to a field goal for the Steelers. Nelson Aguilar dropped what would have been a walking TD on a deep ball from the Mar. The Steelers then blocked a punt for a safety, which could have been a TD. It was very lucky not to have rolled out the end zone before the Steelers recovered it. Then Zay Flowers tripped over when a wide open on another deep ball. Again, that would have been a big gain. They forced a fumble on a punt, then got an instant red zone opportunity where you think, okay, they're going to really start to take a lead in this one. Then Lamar makes his first bad play of the game, which is excellent. I hope this doesn't go on Lamar because it wasn't his fault the Ravens lost yesterday, but he was picked off by Joey Porter in the end zone. Kenny Pickett then hit George Pickens for a 41-yard TD with a minute left, leading to an impressive drive after the Porter interception. And then after that, it just swung Pittsburgh's way, and the Ravens was, it had 6 or 7 opportunities to really take a lead in this game. Alex Highsmith forced Lamar to fumble a few plays later, and TJ Watt was there to scoop it up. Again, TJ Watt, he just always ran the ball, and he has probably won Pittsburgh 2 games this season on his own, to be honest with you. Chris Boswell made it 10-17 to the Steelers, leaving the Ravens with 40 seconds left to tie the game, and Lamar took a sack, and that was the game over. Again, this one was just typical, it's back and forth, great defense, but the Ravens are going to be kicking themselves because all these drops, all these, just poor football plays, like, they're such a big advantage in the AFC North, and now the Steelers are top of the AFC North, which seemed impossible a few weeks ago. Especially with that offense, they've not hit over 20 points a game, and the Bengals are back in play now. If you're the Ravens, just think, if you're a Ravens fan, just thinking, how have we let that one go? Because they were in the driving seat for the North, and now it's just flipped because of poor execution.
I mean, I'll get onto the Ravens in a bit, but just a word on the Steelers. You were talking about it, week 1 at the launch party. You were saying previously that the Steelers and Mike Tomlin can do something, and after week 1, no one thought anything was going to happen with them, and now they've turned up and they're winning games, which is just what Mike Tomlin does. They can win. They could be down 10-3 in the final quarter, and they could reel off 14 points in the fourth quarter and win games. That's what good coaching does. That is what will get you that was what gets you a tick in the win column. I mean, the AFC North is just an absolute minefield. The Ravens, though, it's just they had so many opportunities to just grab the game by the scruff of the neck, and once again, their offense just could not pull through. They'll play pretty nice football for 3 quarters, and then the final quarter, when it means the most, they will just lay the biggest egg, and they did that for the whole of the second half. Really, there's been talk about getting a good receiving core, and they just cannot. They have these names. They've got Zay Flowers, Rashad Bateman, Nelson Aguilar, and nothing clicks with their receiving core. It just does not click for them. And I mean, they've had injuries. They've still got injuries. I mean, Odell went to the locker room. Can't remember if he came back or not, but there's only so much you can blame injuries on. And yesterday was not a game that you can blame injuries on at all. That was just poor football. And it's not a good look for the Ravens yesterday. It will not give them any hope if they do make the playoffs in what is now a really tight division battle. I mean, it's not on Lamar this game, but he's gonna have to pull a few games out of the bag now after that performance from their offense.
Well, that's what I mean. I think before this game, I still have him in this game because there's still no clear MVP. I think Lamar again was one of the people I say was in the MVP conversation. He had a great game against Baltimore. Sorry, against the Browns. That's what I meant. And then and every other game, but the Houston game in Week 1 has been really good for Baltimore. Then yesterday again, AFC North game when it matters, they couldn't really. Everyone. Bateman, Justice Hill, Nelson Aguilar, Zay Flowers, all made mistakes yesterday that cost them the game. That's 4 different offensive weapons. You mentioned it. Odell Beckham went out of the game with an injury. That's 5 offensive players that have let you down in that game. And Lamar again, he had a fumble, he had a pick, and he got sacked at the very end. But I think because of that, those happened because he was trying to force too much because the rest of the team couldn't do it either. So I think everything just went wrong for the Ravens as the game went on yesterday. But yeah, I think it just sets up a really tasty AFC North, which I'm loving. On to the NFC now, where the 2 NFC heavyweights of previous years met. The Super Bowl winners from 2 years ago, the Rams, hosted the Eagles, who reached the Super Bowl last year. It's a great game between, I think, actually 2 playoff teams. I think the Rams are in the hunt for sure. Ollie, what did you see from this one? It was great to see Cooper Kupp back. Both him and Nakua had a day, and the Eagles looked really good as well, didn't they? It was, I think, probably be encouraged by both teams.
I mean, as you said, I think it was a bit of a dogfight. You've seen their offenses, and you got cut back for the Rams, which you thought would elevate it. Matt Stafford is playing some really nice football, and the Eagles can do a lot of things on the offensive side of the ball. But it was a bit of a dogfight, wasn't it? It wasn't high scoring. Showed the Rams defense is not they do not slouch. They are back. Aaron Donald doing his thing as per, and the Eagles defense once again
all over Stafford, over him.
It's just unreal, isn't it? I mean, I would want to gonna have a word on Jalen Hurts, and I mean they lost Shane Steichen, and the first few weeks he was looking a bit ropey, and yeah, he threw an interception in the end zone, which was horrifically underthrew. I heard Greg Olsen saying he was done on purpose. Don't really know if it was or not, but it wasn't a pretty throw. But I mean, 303 yards in total for him, and he ran the ball as he did, got a touchdown. Their offense looks fantastic. I mean, AJ Brown is just unbelievable. Some of the grabs that he was pulling off yesterday was superb. Dallas Goedert, 117 yards. He looked
finally got him involved.
Best. Yeah,
they finally got him involved. Like I said, in fantasy this year, he's been tight end number 30, so he's not been involved in the pass game at all, really. I benched him in one of the leagues this week. Luckily, I benched him for Cole Kmet, who had a game on Thursday night, so I still got away with it. But he finally turned up. Dallas Goedert did, which is good. And I think as well, it's a second straight good week for their offense too, because they were good against the Commanders last week. Because they're now hitting the groove. Obviously, new offensive coordinator, as you were saying, and now is again where you're really starting to hit a groove. And again, all your key players made a play yesterday, didn't they?
Yeah, absolutely. And I mean, and their defense, their key players turned up and made some absolute unreal plays. Jalen Carter, there was a lot of talk about him. The fact he fell to the Eagles was just scary for the whole league, and it's even more scary now. 2 sacks on Matt Stafford. They couldn't get anywhere near him. Hassan Reddick is just unbelievable. He is still playing fantastic football. And they slowed down an LA Rams offense, as you said, had cutback that was moving well. Puka Nacua has been fantastic. And he didn't slow down again yesterday either, really. Kupp came back 118 yards. He did his thing. But Nacua had 7 receptions, 1 less than Kupp, 71 yards, and he got another touchdown to his name. So he looks like an absolute star for them. Kyron Williams, they put faith in him. He looks good. He was 53 yards for 4 yards a carry, and I mean, I think the Rams, as you say, are going to be they're going to challenge in the playoffs. McVay, we know what he can do. He's unbelievable in that head coach role. They just came up against an undefeated Eagles team that are just vying for another Super Bowl chance, and I think it is a pretty big statement win for those Eagles. Their offense played well, their defense played fantastically, and it may be against the 2 or 3 Rams now, but the Rams look fantastic throughout the season, and that was a big win for the Eagles.
For sure. Well, to another big win this time for the Saints. Another huge loss to Bill Belichick. His 2 biggest losses in his career back-to-back. Mac Jones was benched again in the third quarter. Another pick 6 this time to Tyrann Mathieu. He threw out of a sack. Also a high pitch to Stevenson, which he caught and then fumbled. And then another interception as well on a deflection. So that's 3 turnovers called by Mac Jones. Nothing's changed from last year. If anything, I think they actually look worse as a team, to be honest with you. Ultimately, they've played, their schedule to start the year has been horrific. It's been so difficult, probably the most difficult in the league. But I just feel like there's something wrong with this team. I feel like something has to change with the Patriots. They just feel done. It feels the dynasty, even like the legacy just feels done now. Everything. They've had a couple of years now. They've not been, they've not been at dynasty, but they found a way to win games. And right now it just feels done because they aren't winning these games. The games they're supposed to win, the games they've been winning for 20 years. Their losses to the Eagles and the Dolphins, it's fine. They're excusable. They're 2 of the best teams in the league. They played okay that game. They played hard against good teams. Against Dallas, again, a little bit too. They were still horrific in the fundamentals, but that's a team that you're supposed to lose to, as with that talent of Patriots. But the Saints, that's the game that Belichick's been winning for 20 years. That against that sort of level of opponent. Derek Carr off an injury, Alvin Kamara coming back, he's a bit rusty. Chris Olave's injured as well. It's he's got something wrong with it a little bit, so he wasn't 100%. I just look at them and I'm just like, what on earth was it? What on earth is going wrong with these Patriots? It just feels like it's just the beginning of the end. And they're sat at 1-4 now, right? Just imagine what's going to happen next, because I feel like they are going to find some wins at the end of the season, right, and probably cost themselves, Caleb Williams or Drake May. I think they might cost themselves that. But right now, in that building, I just want to be a fly on the wall. I want to know what's going on in that building because it just fascinates me. I really do, because they're stuck in a situation now where Belichick, he can not win as a head coach without Brady. Now more than ever before. It feels like, but O'Brien's offense hasn't worked. It's just, jump balls to Devontae Parker, or maybe you might find Kendrick Bourne open, but he gets open once every couple plays, not like any other, slot receiver. And it's just, Ramondre and Zeke can't run the ball. It's just mid, and it's mid, and verging towards bad. And the Patriots are a bad football team, and that's something we've never said, in our lifetimes. It's mental, isn't it? What's going on?
I mean, well, you said it's the beginning of the end. I think they're almost nearing the end already. If you're benching Mac Jones in the third quarter, you've just completely lost the offensive plot, it seems. I mean, he threw 22 times and 12 for 22, 110 yards, 2 interceptions, another pick 6. I don't know whether it's his fault, really. I mean,
I don't think it
pick
is.
6. You can't. You don't know. It's really interesting because he may not have had his greatest 2 games back to back, where he's had 2 pick 6s in 2 games. But their offense, as you said, Zeke and Ramondre Stevenson, both big names in the run game, they just can't get moving. Stevenson only had 24 yards off 8 tries. Kendrick Bourne was their leading receiver with 43 yards and 2 receptions. It's just stagnant. It is so stagnant. And you can't pin it on Belichick, can you? Because he is a defensive-minded head coach. But I wouldn't even call them mid, their offense. I think their offense could honestly be close to the worst in the league. It's really poor. The defense has been pretty good this year. That's
what makes them mid, I think. Their defense is the defense is saving this team from being the worst team in football.
Absolutely.
That's how bad the Patriots are at this point. Belichick is he's neglected the offensive side of the ball for a while now. It's an offensive league now. It really is. It's offense first, not defense first, right? You have to have a quarterback or skill position players to win in this football. In this league, they've got the offensive line, yes, but they don't have the skill. Zeke's probably done. Ramondre is I'd probably say he's taken a step back from last year. I thought he'd be an every down back. Obviously, they didn't feel that way. That's why they brought in Zeke, and he's not done much either. Your receiver, you probably got the worst receiver room in the league, if I'm being honest. Tight end, you got a tight end in Mike Gesicki, who, yes, okay, he's got all the measurables to be a great tight end, but he has no run after catch ability, right? He's a slow strider. Also, I'm not being funny, as a tight end he can't block, so you're paying him a lot of money, and he's not in the game half the time. Hunter Henry is your best offensive player right now, which again in the year 2023 is saying something. It's just all the chickens coming home to roost for Belichick here. It really is, and I just want to know what happens, because you can't fire him. Does he walk? It's just there's been talk about a little bit of unrest in this building, right? There's a little bit of friction between Belichick and Kraft. Well, what happens now? Because this is your worst starts, probably in the era, I expect. And it's just, and the Saints weren't good yesterday. They weren't. Carr wasn't great. Him and Olave didn't really connect on a couple of balls because Olave's a little bit hurt, but the Patriots handled them that game yesterday, and I think that's what we can take away from it. Something, I could be saying this now, and they'll stink the rest of the season, and Belichick will start a second dynasty of Caleb Williams, and we'll see 20 years of dominance, hand over to someone like Josh McDaniels, actually saying that he's a bad head coach, but hand over to someone, take over the Patriots franchise, and they go for another massive era. We could see that, but I think they're going to win a couple of games on defense eventually, and probably take themselves out of that stake, especially with how bad the Panthers have been, and the Bears got that pick and everything. But I think they're probably going to have a top 10 pick until the Patriots now, so we'll see what they are this time next year. But right now, I think they're done, aren't they? Really, there's no way they're done.
Yeah, I think we were talking about we were talking about the Vikings who are 1-4, and said, do you blow it up? And I said no, because they're playing some nice football. They push the Chiefs all the way. You've just lost 34-0 to the Saints, and the Saints have been really nice on defense. Offensively, they have moved the ball quite nicely. Yesterday was not a good offensive show. Their defense played very nicely, but that was against the Patriots, who could honestly be one of the worst offenses in the league. And they are probably one of the teams who I'd say are very close to just blow it up, just go again next year, just reload. Because if you give Belichick a better offense with the defense playing quite well, pretty well, then maybe he's worth keeping around. But if there's not going to be any love to the offense, he hasn't shown it since 2017, like you've said. Is it time for Kraft to make a big boy decision and let him walk? I mean, it's a really, really interesting decision, and it's going to be really interesting to see how it plays out in the next few weeks. But they're in some deep water, these Patriots,
for sure. On to a team that, again, I mentioned them just a minute ago, they are in deep water. It's the Panthers. They moved to 0-5. They lost to the Lions 20-42. Detroit moved to 4-1, which is massive for that franchise. They breezed past Young and the Panthers. And man, this Lions offense is so fun to watch. They look good, even missing Amon-Ra St. Brown and Jahmyr Gibbs yesterday. That's two of your best players. David Montgomery had a day. Josh Reynolds too. Salma Porter, again, he's one of my favourite players to watch in this league. I loved him in the draft process. I actually thought Bryce Young looked pretty good as the game went on, but his takeaways at the start of the game cost the Panthers the game. What did you see from this one, Ollie?
I mean, I sat down and fully watched the Lions last week, Thursday night football, walked into Lambeau and just dominated, really, and they did the same again. And Dan Campbell has built he's built a team, and that is what you can do when you have a team that is united after going through hardship from the last 2 years. Last year as well, we finally went on that run, and they're just building and building and building, and they are on the crest of a wave right now.
I think with him as well, he's a head coach. That's what he like.
Yeah.
You know, it's like Harbaugh, it's like Tomlin. Those guys don't call plays. You know, Dan Campbell is not. You know, he doesn't call plays. He's a tight end coach. You know, Ben Johnson is one of the best offensive minds in football we're seeing at the moment on the offensive side of the ball. And Aaron Glenn's getting by on defense after last year's shits heap that the Lions had on defense last year. They spent a bit of money on it, and now they're getting away with it, and now they're starting to play better. They've got some talent as well. They got they're about Brian Branch yesterday as well, another young DB they brought in. They've missed Emmanuel Mosley. Now this Lions team again. I would probably put the Lions to beat the Cowboys now. I'd probably say they're their third best team in the NFC if I'm being honest. I'm loving what I'm seeing. It's so creative on offense from Ben Johnson. We saw that with the flea flicker. The Niners ran a very similar play on Sunday Night Football. It's just so fun to watch. And again, they were missing Amon-Ra St. Brown and Jahmyr Gibbs. It's 42.
It's ridiculous. I mean, Gibbs didn't do much last week on Thursday Night Football. Montgomery carried the rock and absolutely destroyed the Packers on the ground, and he did it once again against the Panthers. Missing Amon-Ra St. Brown as well it would hurt any normal team, but these Lions don't seem normal. And defensively, they can rush this. They can hunt the quarterback and they can hit him and they can stop the run. Their defensive line is dangerous. Aiden Hutchinson looks like an absolute stud. He looks fantastic. Their defensive line looks brilliant. Anzalone controlling those linebackers. He's coming into his own. And yeah, they missed Branch and Mosley's been out for a while. But they just make plays. They've all, to coin a phrase, they have all got that dog in them, and they just play so hard, and it's just fun to watch. Like you said, they are a really fun team to watch. And credit Ben Johnson, he made the Packers look really silly last week. He made the Panthers look silly. A triple flea flicker for a touchdown is just obscene, and it's just they look fantastic. They look so good. And as you say, they could be, you could say they're second, third best team in the NFC. And yeah, it looks good. It's tough on the Panthers because I don't know if they deserve to get a 40 burger thrown onto them, but yeah, that's a complete, just blow it up. They're 0-5. See you later. We'll see you next year, pretty much. Bryce Young, as you said, looked quite good. Thielen had another 100-yard game, but it's really poor in Carolina right now, isn't it?
Yeah, well, their offensive line is a joke, and their defense, they've got talent on defense, but again, Thompson, Luvu, Brian Burns, JC Horn, like all of them just get hurt so often that I think something's got to change really on that defense, because again, the last couple of years all they've done is get injured, and you know the four of them are very rarely on the field at the same time, which is saying something really, isn't it? Moving over to Denver, where Nathaniel Hackett got revenge. The Broncos losing 21-31 to the Jets. The Denver offense played one half of football again. They've done that in 4 or 5 games, and it cost them yesterday. They again look like one of the worst coached teams in football, which is obviously, funnily enough, that they lost to a Hackett-coached offense. Sean Payton, they look good. They look so good. They draw you in for one half, whether it's the first half or the second half of every game, and then the other half of the game they look dreadful. they really do, and it starts from the very start of this game. With a Marvin Mims fumble punt return, and after that, the Broncos did bounce back, especially against good Jets defense too. You know, it's very good. You know, the Denver offense were really good in the first half. They got into a lead, but they could barely get a yard in the second half. At one point, they had 11 plays in a row that went for something like minus 14 yards, and they lost a fumble in that time as well. That is absolutely atrocious. It really is. Breece Hall probably won this game for the Jets. His TD at the start of the third quarter was a game-shaping play. It shaped the game towards the Jets, and it put them up. It made up for the 3 points that they left at the board at the end of the second half, where Hackett and Zach Wilson couldn't get the clock stopped in time to go for a field goal at the end of the second half. Sorry, at the end of the first half. It was 15-13 at that point to the Jets. They're up by 2 points. The game ended. It goes back and forth for a while. The game ended with a costly Russell Wilson fumble. They were down. They were down 24-21 with less than a minute left to go, and they got them. He got them in good range to at least tie the game. They're on the verge of field goal range. Pat Santana just picked off Zach Wilson. Momentum was back with Denver for the first time in the entire second half, and then he was strip sacked by Quincy Williams trying to scramble to his left. And Bryce Hall took it in for a TD to win the game for the Jets. The Broncos are just so iffy. Quincy Williams, by the way, great player. Quinn Williams' brother, he's been one of the Jets' best players this entire season. He's awesome on that defense. Russell Wilson, man, that was his worst game yesterday. Again, Jets defense is very, very good. Is excusable why, but no, yeah, I think. Zach Wilson looked okay. He looked okay. Russell Wilson probably was the better quarterback yesterday, in my opinion. But I'd love to see Russell Wilson in this Jets team, although take away Hackett as a play caller because that will never work. But I just the Broncos look badly coached, which is it's really funny now that Sean Payton made that comment. Obviously, Hackett got his revenge, and the Broncos, sitting at 1-4 now, are really just looking around and it's like what's going on because I bet they can't put their finger on it because they look so. It looks like they've turned a corner and then they go and drop a stinker the rest of the game. It's happened every week this week. This year.
I mean, their one win came against a Bears team that were just vying for a win, which is what they did.
Even so, right? They were down 3 scores in that game, came back and won it. They were awful the first half. Second half, that's the thing. Even so, it's the same theme. It's like they need. It's like they just switch off. They're not mentally there. The whole team.
We were saying that they're the worst coached team purely based from Vance Joseph and their defense, and it looked like that because their defense was just atrocious. They couldn't play 1 quarter, let alone 4. And now we're slowly seeing this offense just trundle its way through the game. And yeah, they look good for the first half, and then they just shut down the second half. As you said, you can't really put a finger on it because you don't know whether to blame Sean Payton. But then you don't know whether to blame this offense entirely because Hackett came in for 1 season and the offense looked awful. And then Payton comes in with this offensive mind that he'll work with Russ. And Russ has looked a bit better, but their offense hasn't got much better. It's a really confusing locker room, especially on the offensive side. Defensively, they had a couple of takeaways. They had an interception, and they looked okay. They looked all right.
The defense looked good yesterday. The defense second half of last week. The defense carried on. They played a whole game. That's the thing. The defense carried on the second half of last week. Played a whole game this week. The defense wasn't the problem yesterday. It was the offense. Just laying an egg in the second half. That's what lost the Broncos the game.
Yeah, I mean it's. Credit to the Jets and their defense. Their defense has been superb all year so far, and it will win them some games. It was what won them the game yesterday because, as you said, Wilson he looked all right. He didn't look overly impressive. He didn't look as good as he did against the Chiefs. But these Broncos, it's just so confusing. Again on the Jets, it's nice for them to get another win. It's nice for Wilson to get a tick in the win column, and Salah as well. He looks really good as a head coach. It's just a shame we couldn't see what they could have done with Rodgers. Hopefully he pulls some miracle and does come back because, yes, he's a divisive figure, but the Jets at full strength will be a really interesting team to watch. But it's nice for them to keep the spirits high. There's been a lot of questions about their locker room, and it doesn't look like it's really affecting them, coming off a really nice performance on Sunday Night Football to now getting a win. But these Broncos they've got to figure something out, and if they don't do it quick, it is going to be blow it up, and we'll go again next year.
For sure. On to 2 teams in the AFC South that both came into the game. Both came into the week at 2-2. 2 good defenses two good run games. It was a very typical close AFC South game. Unfortunately for the Colts, they lost Anthony Richardson in this game. Gardner Minshew came in and gave the Colts another win, however. But yeah, the sort of main storyline of this game was the fact that Anthony Richardson was injured in the second quarter with a shoulder injury. He had a run play to his right. He got hit hard. He landed on his shoulder. And it's the same injury that Derek Carr had, but this is a worse sprain. It sounds like Richardson will probably miss a month of football, which is really a shame because obviously Liam, said at the end of the podcast on Friday that he's only finished one of his 3 games in the NFL so far. Obviously, he's got concussions. He got taken out last week too, and he's starting to build a bit of an injury worry, injury concern. Something that sort of hovers over the likes of Jimmy Garoppolo and Tua, where it's like he can't really take hits very well. So that is a concern. But when he does play, we saw at the start of this game, Richardson's a great player, and hopefully he can. When he gets back, if he can stay healthy the rest of his career, because the Colts look a really well coached team. They look really good. I said the run game was great. Jonathan Taylor came back yesterday. Has got his big contract that he wanted. They didn't even use him. They didn't need to yet. He's still he's hard. He's not played. He still needs to just get the flow of the game. And Zach Moss is absolutely balling right now. He's never 2 touchdowns. He's the first 100-yard rusher against the Titans in 20 games too, which is a big margin for them. Obviously, we know how good the Titans are in defense. And yeah, just the Colts, the defense played well. The run game won them this game. Minshew, again, he's solid when he come in the last couple of games. Again, I think the Colts will probably be a 7-8 win team. I don't think they'll make the playoffs, but again, it's a big win for them without Richardson. And the Titans, they're just again, DeAndre Hopkins looked good, right? The defense looked good, as well. It's not Derek Henry looked okay. It's nice to see that Hopkins still has it, but I just feel sorry for him that he's got Ryan Tannehill as his QB because he doesn't offer anything. They don't add. Tannehill does not add anything to this Titans offense. I think if you put Desmond Ridder in that offense, he'd be exactly the same. Again, I think they're basically the same player, which is why. But I think Tannehill's a bottom 3rd QB in this league. If I'm being honest with you, right? But the problem with the Titans is they're always going to win so many games by defense and their run game that they're not going to get a QB, so they're just stuck in this endless loop. And luckily they lost this game, so maybe they do have an off year. Obviously Vrabel's not going to get fired. They've got a pretty badly talented team compared to the rest of the league. But I think right now the Colts, the better team, they have more momentum to them, and probably the better talented team too. The Colts, I'd now say so.
Yeah, I think once again it came down to fantastic bit. You were talking about the Colts and their coaching. I mean, Shane Steichen did wonders with Philly last year, and he's coming into this Colts team and he's really putting his stamp on it, and it looks good, and there's a lot of positives to take. But the one thing that they are going to be really concerned about is Anthony Richardson not completing another game, this time a big shoulder injury. It's not what they want to see from someone that they put a lot of draft capital in. But as you said, Zach Moss on the ground, if they can just keep plugging away on the ground like that, well, not even plugging away, 165 yards, they can do that on the ground every game, then there's going to be a lot more wins coming their way.
And they've got Jonathan Taylor coming back too.
That's
one of the best backs in football. It's a nice time to be a Colts fan, I'd say.
It is. They're looking nice. They're looking really, really nice. You just got to hope that Richardson comes back from this injury, and it would be lovely for him to stay healthy. Would love that for the league because he looks really good for the league. He looks like he can make some really nice plays. On the other hand, the Titans, I really do think they're missing Arthur Smith. Ryan Tannehill is definitely missing Arthur Smith as his OC. It's not going his way. Whereas the last few seasons when they had Smith there, everything seemed to be working. They were just playing. A lot of people don't like Smith and his boring football, but it got Tennessee results, and they're missing that right now. Henry's not looks like the 2,000-yard running back that we are used to. Hopkins, as you said, nice for him to get 140 yards. He's still got it, but there's something missing. They're struggling with talent, like you said. There is not a lot of talent on that roster. but there's just something missing, isn't it? It's just not clicking for them. And it's going to be an arduous season for them, I think.
There's a lot of talk that they're probably going to move Derrick Henry on at the trade deadline. Any team that's a contender, if you can get Derrick Henry and if you add him to your offense, that'd be great, and that will reach like we saw McCaffrey at the end of last year, the Niners. I think they'll probably try and look and get a similar package, something like a second, because I don't think anyone's going to give away a first round pick for Derrick Henry and maybe a third perhaps. But if they can get a second, I think they take that and they run with it, because I think it's probably time for the Titans to rebuild now. And again, you got a good you got a good coach and able to do that as well. So I think that's one thing that you're not worried about. It's just about building a new roster, I think, of them. I think it's the same thing with the Giants as well. I think they're quite lucky the way they won games last year. This year, obviously, they got a very hard schedule, and they're missing, Andrew Thomas and Barkley, 2 year best players. So they were going to get thrown out by the Dolphins yesterday. It could have been more. It was only 31-16. Miami got back to winning ways. Tyreek, Devon Achane, awesome, put on a show to beat the Giants. The Dolphins turned the ball over 3 times. It could have been way more. They dominated this game. Maybe not the ton of possession, but they just every time they got the ball, they scored within a few seconds, and that's just how good they are on offense. I think to watch, it sounds like Devon Achane might have hurt his ankle. That might have been to watch. Obviously, he's a great player to have, but they've got Raheem Mostert, again, who is also good. So even if they do lose Achane, who probably I'd say is Offensive Rookie of the Year favourite right now. I was going to mention it for Jalen Carter for the Eagles. He's the Defensive Rookie of the Year favourite too. But Tua wasn't the best. But it just shows how good they are, that they can absolutely dominate the Giants, with his 2 interceptions, one of the pick 6 especially. Like I said, the Dolphins turned the ball over 3 times, a fumble from Achane too, but the Giants just couldn't move the ball offensively. Hopefully the offensive line of Barkley can come back soon, because this team just looks like they're going absolutely nowhere. Because otherwise this season could just go very south very quickly. Daniel Jones was getting killed again. Obviously, he got sacked 10 times last week. He got sacked a lot this week too. He left the game with a neck injury. Tyrod Taylor came in. If you're a Giants fan, I don't know what you do, because I think you're sitting there at 1-4 and you're thinking, oh, maybe we shouldn't have paid Jones. Maybe because we'll see what happens there, because you have a chance to probably again grab a good quarterback in the draft. Because I don't think they should have paid Daniel Jones, but luckily they didn't pay him very much, which is good for them. So I think it's certainly a movable contract, but we'll see what happens with them in the future. As for the Dolphins, they've broken the record for the most yards in the first 5 games of the season, previously owned by the greatest show on turf Rams, a team in 1999. The Dolphins are so good. Their offense is so good, and the Dolphins and the Niners, they're just so far ahead of anyone else in this offensive side of the football, isn't it? Like Mike McDaniel and Kyle Shanahan are just geniuses, aren't they?
I mean, I heard the greatest show on turf was named yesterday. I didn't know that was the stat that was broken. I mean, it is just explosive offense, and that's what McDaniel's built with this offensive team. He's just got so many speedsters and so many explosive players that can just build all these yards. It's just unbelievable. As you said, Tua had 2 interceptions, wasn't his greatest game, but still threw for 308 yards. Him and Hill, I don't know how they've got this unbelievable combination that they have, but 181 yards again. And it's almost becoming the norm. It's like, he's another 150 plus yard game. There you are, another one for Hill. It's just ridiculous. Devon Achane is an absolute brilliant player. I didn't think that was going to happen. I thought that might be one game. He played against Broncos defense that was just absolutely spiraling at that stage, but he backed it up yet again. 151 yards off of just 11 carries. He's got some speed, and he's got some speed. He's got more than some speed. He looks brilliant. He looks really, really good. And as you said, they've got Mostert as well. It's a really nice predicament for the game for Miami. Losing Armstead on the IR is going to be interesting to see how that is managed. But if you're a Dolphins fan like you are, it's a nice feeling to be where you are right now. Conversely, you have the Giants, who are injuries aren't helping them. You're right. But as you can only blame injuries for a certain period of time, and Daniel Jones is just not the man who should be with that contract leading that team. That's just a fact. The fact they got their first touchdown in the first half in week 5, and it came from a 102-yard pick six, just says everything you need to know about their offense. Their defense it's all right. It's there. It is just there. They've finally got some takeaways. They play pretty hard.
Yeah, Martindale is a great play caller. He can confuse people. Again, I think when I predicted the Dolphins season on Andy's podcast, as Fitness Nation UK podcast, I picked the Giants to the trap game. So I know it's the sort of game that the Dolphins struggling against a multiple defensive play caller. They got through it. And 2 or 300 yards, and probably should have thrown 3 touchdowns yesterday. Bar the turnovers, which I think have been an issue with the Dolphins with fumbles, less so 2 interceptions, but we had the SDSA too. That's the only thing that this offense is to sort of deal with. Other than that, again, they're unstoppable, and look, they've had the most yards in NFL history, 3-5 games, and that in itself is just absolutely insane. So it is. It really is just incredible to see this happening. But obviously, you're going to get more and more stats like that broken. With the more the offensive side of the ball continues to dominate in the league, and also the more games you play as well. But on to a game that wasn't great offensively. To finish out the podcast, it's the Texans and the Falcons. The Falcons came away 21-19 winners. Desmond Ridder was the star of the show as Atlanta put on a strong second half to defeat the Texans. It was a slow start to this one, but it came alive in the second half. It was a tie game at 18-0 with a little bit to go. One final drive for Atlanta to take the game. Desmond Ridder hit Drake London across the middle for a big gain. And then Younghoe Koo won the game for the Falcons. I think Desmond Ridder needed that game. I thought he looked okay this year. I think he looked pretty, probably his best game as an NFL starter. He needed that after last week's performance, didn't he? Because he was getting ridiculed last week. I think just moving on to CJ Stroud as well, he was great again. He's broken Dak's record for the most games without an interception as a rookie, which is absurd. And especially the team that Dak had compared to the team that Stroud has. I like the Texans again. I think they could sneak into the playoffs potentially, but that Dallas team has been very good for forever. I think Ridder needed that, didn't he? And for the Falcons, you can take it away because they didn't really run the ball well. It was all on Desmond Ridder, and he threw for over 300 yards. Yeah,
I was looking through the stats again. I mean, I'm surprised to see him throw 329 yards. I mean, you said that before the season, people would be laughing at that. But they put the ball in his hands, and fair play to him. When him at the most, went down the field, got the field goal from Younghoe Koo, and here we are talking about a win, and that's their 3rd win. They're over 500. They didn't run the ball brilliantly. They're going to have games where when it's like that, where they put the ball in Ridder's hands, and this time it came through. It looked fantastic. After last week's abomination, really, it was a game that he really needed to turn up and play. Fair play to him. He did. I think D'Amico Ryans will not be happy to let a game like that slip as the head coach, as a defensive-minded head coach. He will not be impressed at all. Kyle Pitts, there's been a lot of talk about him, about how he's just fallen off this cliff, as it were, since coming out of college. But 7 receptions, 87 yards, a nice little game for him as well to pick himself back up.
If they threw 300 yards and didn't have a big game from Kyle Pitts, I think we'd be very worried. Yeah, because we saw Johnny Smith with half 99 yards as a tight end last week in London. If Carl, the fact that Carl Pitts is basically sometimes he's been tight end 2 behind Johnny Smith, that really is a worry for the Falcons. But I think they're going to move him on in the trade deadline. I think just because there are teams out there that will really want Carl Pitts. Liam mentioned one. I think the Chiefs could do with Carl Pitts. That'd be a real nice duo to have. I think a team would love to have him. The Dolphins maybe, although they're looking at playing Chase Claypool at tight end, which we'll see how that goes. I think he'll move on at some point just because the way I think he needs to be in a pass heavy offense, and obviously this Falcons offense isn't very pass heavy at all.
No, it's a lot more focused on the run game, just how Arthur Smith likes it. I mean, they put the ball in Ridder's hands, like we've said, and he won them the game. And you're not going to get that often. So when it happens, fair play to him. As you said on Stroud, though, for the Texans, he has looked really, really nice in an offense that where he's breaking these records. This offense was nowhere near the other quarterbacks that were even around him. So he's looking really, really, he's looking something special. And if the Texans can keep building what they're building with D'Amico Ryans, they could be in with a really, really good chance of creating something quite good. Ryans looks like he is the right guy for the job. Texans have played really nice football. They've just gone the wrong way, which is what you're going to get with a first-time head coach with a rookie QB. You're just not going to be able to get yourself in that win column. But there's a lot to like about these Texans, and I think they could sneak into the playoffs, like you said. And if they do, that's a fantastic first season for Ryans and Stroud, and they could really fly in their second season and even their third season.
Awesome. Just before I let you go, Ollie, obviously I can't not ask you about Monday Night Football. How do you feel like that's going to go tonight?
Yeah, it's a really interesting one. I'm obviously horrendously biased when it comes to the Packers, but I still have a lot of time for Jordan Love. I think even he said himself his completions need to skyrocket, which I agree with, but his yards, his touchdowns the way he plays looks nice. Like middle of the field, short game looks nice. Deep ball needs some work. It's another conversation. I can talk about Jordan Love for quite a while. The game itself, Garoppolo's back, which is nice. We want a competitive game. Adams is in. Jair Alexander is in. So big players are around. I think Jones will be playing as well. I think that's a lot more up in the air. But it's a game that both teams need to win. I think this is a big prove it game for whoever comes out of it. And yeah, it's a nice Monday night game. It's not like big light. It's not the best two teams, but it could be an attritional game that both teams need to win. I'd like to say the Packers will win it, but you just don't know which Packers or which Raiders teams come out because they've both been very hit and miss. I would like to say that it's going to be a Packers victory, and I think it will be. But it'll be an interesting game to watch tonight.
Yeah, I can't pick against the Packers at all, especially like I think it'll be a good game for Love because it's prime time. And he's going against that atrocious Raiders defense too, so that you might get a little bit unstuck with Max Crosby rushing in because the pass rush of the Raiders is pretty good. But once he can see the field, if he can see the field as well as you think he has done, then he'll have a really good game for sure. So I'm going to pick the Packers to take down the Raiders on Monday Night Football. Well, Ollie, thank you for joining me, mate. It's been great to have you on. And I'll see you all on Friday with another preview. Week 6 now. God, season's going so quickly, isn't it? But it's what happens to the NFL, and before you know it, we'll be in the playoffs. But before now, I'll see you next week. I'll see you for Week 6.